Hi, it's Andrew here from Trident Training and Consulting, and today I've got a video that's going to be talking a bit about how to support people in our life who have experienced sexual violence. When I say sexual violence, I mean anything that might fall under the umbrella of sexual assault, sexual harassment, anything that was non-consensual, rape, image-based sexual violence, anything that someone may have experienced that was sexual or physical in nature. So when this happens to someone, they're likely to speak to a close friend or a family member first. And the reaction of that person can really make a significant impact on what decisions they might make next, and it can also influence how they feel about their own experience. So it's really important for all of us to know how to provide this support that comes across and is empathetic, caring, and compassionate. We never know when we might need to provide this kind of support for others, but when we do, it's really important that we're able to do it in a way that really actually feels supportive. And often survivors will say the first person they talk to did not provide support in that way. So it is really important and it makes a big difference. So I hope that you'll take something useful out of this video. So when someone has experienced any kind of sexual violence, you might be wondering what have they actually experienced? And a lot of it has to do with loss. So someone who's experienced any kind of harassment, assault, image-based sexual violence, they've lost power, they've lost agency. In certain situations, they have lost bodily autonomy and the ability to make decisions about how your body is used. They've lost control, and someone else has taken it from them. And they may have previously or currently be experiencing physical, emotional, and mental trauma based on what that experience was. And what they might be feeling through all of that might be confusion, feeling lost. There might be physical pain that's associated with the kind of sexual violence. There's self-victim blaming if we are assaulted and we also have our own victim blaming thoughts that we're working through. We may blame ourselves. We may feel betrayal. We may feel anger, hatred, shame, numbness, sadness, or nothing. And all of those responses are valid. And a lot of times survivors are called into question because they're not responding the right way. Even in legal systems, sometimes this is said. And there really is no right way because it's something that's traumatic, so we all respond differently. So it's really important to know that. So when we're thinking next about what can I do to help if someone comes to me and tells me that they've experienced something like this, well, the first thing is just to listen. And I know that sounds really easy, just listen to them, just be there. But it actually does take a really good skill to just listen, not offer advice, not jump in to try and fix things immediately, but just listen and to try and withhold our own judgment. We definitely want to be using their own language back. So if someone is describing something as an assault and then we start calling it rape, that's not necessarily helpful. So you want to mimic the language that you're hearing from the person who's speaking with you. And it's really about doing our best to allow people to have agency and choice restored to them because that's something that's been taken away. So you want to allow people to make their own choices. So that could be around the location of the conversation, the timing, what kind of help they want, whether or not they want to tell anybody else, who they want to tell, and not telling them, oh, you must do this, you have to do this. It's important also to really be sensitive to the space and the physicality between the two of you. So sometimes our instinct is, oh, you're hurting, I should hug you. That might actually not be helpful and could be traumatizing for the person who had this negative experience to experience a physical touch. So being very cautious around the ways that we engage, even if it's someone who we're used to hugging, used to talking to in that way and engaging in that way, thinking about how can we actually not do that and sort of follow their own cues. If it's something that they ask for or they need, that's one thing, but offering it right away is not always the best. We want to make sure that our face and our tone are keeping neutral/supportive. So sometimes we inadvertently wrinkle up our face or we make a little noise like things like that. That obviously won't be very helpful. So thinking about just staying in sort of a neutral and supportive tone. We want to try and release our expectations and move away from a problem-solving mindset. We're not really trying to solve the problem in the moment. We're there to provide support. And sometimes the way people feel that it's easiest to provide support is by saying, okay, here's the list of things you can do, here's the list of things you must do, here's the list of things you have to do, and that is not actually as helpful for folks as just sort of listening and being present and sharing space with them. We also want to make sure that we don't change the topic, so sometimes it can make us uncomfortable, and we can name that, but we shouldn't just sort of switch topics if someone is talking about a sexual assault that they've experienced, because they will feel shut down and like we're not willing to listen or be there for them. And thinking about that, we also want to allow for silence. This can be a really difficult topic to talk about, and so sometimes it can be more of a quieter conversation. It can be a time where it takes the survivor a while to tell you what the situation is. And so it's okay to just allow for that silence and again, just be present with someone. You can attend to their needs. You can think about water, food, making them comfortable. What do they need? But just sort of allowing for that space there to just be and sort of let the conversation breathe. The other thing you want to do is to believe them. So research has gone over and over and over this, and people very rarely lie about sexual violence, not more or less than any other crime. And we generally will believe people anytime they tell us, oh, I was robbed, oh, I had this stolen from me, oh, my car got hit. We're going to think, oh, okay, sure, we're not going to ask them for proof. But when it comes to sexual violence, people often say, oh, well, I don't believe you, oh, well, what did you do to cause this, and all these other victim-blaming things, and that's a lot less helpful. And my perspective is always that if someone is seeking support from you, it's up to you to provide it, or it's up to you to provide resources or sort of find a way to negotiate that situation if you don't feel like you can provide support. You are not making decisions about somebody's guilt or responsibility in a court of law, and therefore it doesn't really matter. I will always say to people, what is the thing that you have to lose the most by believing a friend, for instance, who comes to confide in you and ask for your support? Almost nothing. If it turns out that they are lying, which would be extremely rare, that would suck, but not believing them from the beginning and sort of telling them that what they experienced wasn't real is much worse for them, and it could really impact the relationship you have with that person. And remember that just because you don't understand or there's a reaction that you don't think that you would give, it doesn't change what actually happens to them. Everyone responds to trauma differently, and it's really important to acknowledge that. So things that you can say that would be helpful with folks. Sometimes we get lost, we don't really know what to say when someone is first telling us about something traumatic. We can say something like, thank you for sharing this with me. What happened is not your fault. Are there any steps that you want to take next, and can I help with that? I'm here to listen. I'm here to be present and help in any way I can, or you want me to. So I'm not inserting myself in this situation. I am responding to what you might need from me. And then also, do you have any physical, safety, or medical needs at the moment? And thinking about what is the immediate moment. If someone is bruised or bleeding or otherwise has some sort of physical issue, then you may want to help them access care for that. So trying to figure out what that looks like. Of course, there's other things that we can say that are not helpful. So even some of these might seem like they're helpful, but they actually are can be based in some victim-blaming behaviors. So saying something like, I wish you told me sooner, you know I would have wanted to help, sort of puts the burden on them for not having told you sooner. And maybe they didn't know that you would have wanted to help. Saying that you need, should, must do anything, and reminding, that's not very helpful. So allowing them to make the choices that they want about what's next. Telling someone to start from the beginning, tell me everything that happened, again, not helpful, especially in a support kind of situation in which someone is just seeking support from you. So saying start from the beginning and tell me everything, it's not exactly helpful because people may not want to tell you all the details, and again, it might not be pertinent if you're seeking support from someone. Saying things like, what did you do to stop them? Did you fight back? Did you yell? What did you do? How did you tell them there was no consent? Again, these are victim-blaming questions. And again, they're not helpful when you're trying to support. So the question should always be, are the things I'm saying helpful in terms of providing support to somebody else? And if they're not, or if I don't actually need that information and I'm just being nosy, it's probably not necessary. So really focus on the support and what that person needs. So yeah, lastly, anything that would be victim-blaming, like, why did you go to their room? What were you wearing? Don't you know what they're like? Haven't you heard the rumors, etc.? These, again, are victim-blaming behaviors, and they put the onus on the person who experienced it instead of on the person who perpetrated it. So as I wrap up, just my final thoughts would be, when someone trusts you enough to seek support about something so traumatic, like any kind of instance of sexual violence, we really should give them our full attention, empathy, and care. If we are totally lost and we can't remember anything about how to support them, just listen. Offer support, and be present with them. Help people know that they're not alone and that you're there to be with them. So I hope that this was helpful. Feel free to leave any additional thoughts that you have about what to say, what not to say, things that you think work or don't work in the comments. And thanks so much for watching.